I'm hitting record, so we are now officially recording, and then we are all going to start our episodes on the count of 3. Oh wait, actually, hold on. I gotta plug my headphones in. Sorry, hold on. Okay.
You keep cutting out, John.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Better.
We hear you now.
On the count.
Nope, you're gone again.
Nope.
Yeah, cutting out. Count of what?
All right. How about now?
Say more than 2 words.
Yeah. Better? Better?
Yeah.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's better.
On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm hearing somebody's episode. Beth?
Sorry. I didn't even know I've been unmuted this whole time.
Huge subtitles.
Completely agree.
Yeah, that's true. Now I kind of want to watch The Outer Limits.
John, you're committing yourself to like 10 years of TV watching it.
That's okay. What's interesting is that telescopic view was from the high school. That had to have been shot from somewhere up high on that, that area where the high school is. It wouldn't have been from where Lane's house is because the angle's not correct.
TV magic.
Speaking of hockey, have any of y'all watched Mighty Ducks with Lauren Graham?
I really liked it. I was super skeptical, but I think it's sweet.
I remember really enjoying the original Mighty Ducks. Is it kind of in the similar spirit?
I've been enjoying the Mighty Ducks, the new one. I've been watching it.
I saw one of them years ago, and I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I've been watching it, and I've enjoyed it too.
Emilio Estevez still has a thing for single hockey moms.
Yeah. What's up, Paris always just shows up.
Well, because you know Roy won't ever turn her away.
Anybody else sort of seeing this conversation as sort of an inside joke in regards to like the way that the actors on the show speak?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was my first thought.
Especially the dramatic pause thing, right? Because that never happens in Gilmore Girls. Like they don't do dramatic pauses.
Oh, here it is. Christopher.
I mean, that is something that we're told as actors also, like, don't drink milk before a scene. All right, so am I in for a disappointment here? Am I in for Christopher just horribly disappointing Rory? Is that what that last conversation was
You're not allowed to ask us.
We're
Sean.
not doing
You know better. I only listened to Belle and Sebastian in high school because I knew Lane did, and I thought she had good musical taste. Oh, wow. That's supposedly the window that she looked at Rory at Luke's, and it's across from high school.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so inconsistent. Oh, my goodness.
How Rory is looking like kind of in the direction of, in terms of the set, she's sort of looking. Oh well, no, she's actually looking. That is Mrs. Kim's right there. But that was the same angle that she was looking at Luke.
Yeah.
And the actual shot of Luke's was not from that angle.
Definitely not.
Uh-oh. he's a good guy. He would never do this. He would never miss it. Right?
You won't have to suffer long, John. Just hold on. It's weird to me that Sookie doesn't know what Chris looks like after all these years.
I was just thinking that. That
only
just tells you
visited
how much he
once.
hasn't been around. Here he is. He's back, John. Poor Brad. She looks really familiar.
She was
That's Alyssa Bocanegra. She's yeah, I know her.
Well, she was the teacher who was supposed to do the paper.
The yearbook? Or yeah, the newspaper.
Oh no, I meant the actress standing next to Brad.
Oh, I meant the teacher.
It's fun to see people you know, actors you know from the industry, and you just didn't know that they were in the show. Yay!
Just wait.
Ooh.
No.
Ooh.
Of course he did.
And she's still getting used to it. Did you catch that little whisper?
Why wouldn't she assume that that she might be with him?
He said he was on a business trip.
Yeah, he said he's on business, so she wouldn't assume that his girlfriend would be with him on business.
Jeez.
That always makes me feel bad for Paris.
And that's why I never want company over.
Sherry. Ugh.
Oy.
Awkward now.
Oh my God.
She's annoying. Did Sherry really think that she could just be friends with Rory and never meet her mother?
Jeez. Sherry really needs to settle down.
Yes, it's embarrassing.
Very. You're rude to Rory's mother and then say, let's go shopping? Ugh.
Ugh. That character is
She's obnoxious.
very unlikable.
I was so excited for you to see her.
Very interesting.
There you go.
I believe him.
So weird. It wasn't the same thing, Christopher.
Rory doesn't live with you. It's a totally different thing.
And he wasn't really around at that time either.
I'll hold my thoughts until the end.
Uh-oh.
Hell hath no fury like Emily.
She really put 8 cherries in her drink.
Christopher's friend.
Emily's face just kills me. Ew. Richard is so clueless right now. I know, he's being so supportive.
No idea what's going on.
And there it is.
She called her mother for the first time. Whoa, that was intense.
Yep.
Interesting for somebody like me who really likes Emily and Christopher in that situation. I have to sort of choose between the two.
I think that's the best for Lorelai.
Same here.
My gosh, I won't be able to not look at the sweater.
The Papillon dog on the sweater just seems kind of random.
Yeah, I just can't stop looking at it. It really is the third character in the scene.
I feel like I'm the only one that doesn't notice it until people talk about it.
I loved PB Herman.
How long has the Ricky Lake show been off air?
I think it was off the air before this show was on the air.
I just looked at that, 2004.
I love this scene.
Score!
Poor Michelle.
Michelle looks so weird in like a jogging tracksuit.
I can't believe he even agreed to this in the first place.
And that he wore a grout fit. Like, I felt like Michelle would be a little bit fancier than that.
He does talk about eating healthy and stuff a lot, so I can see
Yeah,
him.
he got his cardio in.
Is this the scene I think it is? Because,
Pretty sure it is, yeah.
oh boy. Nobody talks.
Oh boy. Whoa.
Wow.
And there you go.
I really want to hear your thoughts on that last scene, John.
I don't like Sherry.
I'm gonna have to sort of hold off on speaking for a little bit because Babsy's actually cooking dinner and it's a little noisy right now. So why don't you all speak for a little bit and then I'll pipe in a sec.
Open the room.
Open the couch. I'll start off by saying that I actually agree with Chris at the very end.
Really?
Yeah.
I do too.
I don't
I've never
think
agreed with Chris with that.
I don't think that was something that she needed to share with Chris at all.
100%. I'm 100% with you, Mary. Like
yeah,
she did not need to
100%
share.
as well. It's absolutely true. Like she may have done all that stuff, but telling Chris is emotional blackmail on Chris. Like he didn't need to know it. It just was wrong.
100%. 100%.
I think it'd be okay to tell him, but maybe just it's a weird timing. Like if she had told him before, you know, I've been waiting for you, and you know, she had opportunities before.
I don't think there's a good timing though, now that he's with Sherry and they're forming a life together. And I think that it started with her asking Rory, well, what'd you think about your parents? Or, you know, Chris and I. And I thought, well, what does she mean? He wasn't even around. And so she started kind of putting seeds there. And then I thought she was totally out of line with Christopher as well.
So I think around because Lorelai kept telling him not to be.
It was such a just a bizarre thing to even reveal. I mean, I get it. She's emotional. So, I mean, I can understand it from a character flaw perspective, but it just seemed like definitely the weirdest time to bring it up. And in general, just a weird thing to even bring up at all. Like, if that's how you feel, totally, like, good. But it's not something you necessarily need to share with anybody. You know, it's like, if that's all true, then let it be true. Let it lead you on the rest of your own personal journey. But to say that to him is so clearly emotionally manipulative.
So I have a strange theory on that. I think Christopher gets upset because if he had known that, he probably wouldn't be serious with Sherry, because I think he wants her as well. And he's more upset at the fact that she's finally admitting it and he's not available. That's my theory on that.
I also feel like perhaps she would not have said something if she had not had the conversation with Emily in the kitchen. Like that almost inspired her to, you know, reveal this to Christopher. Perhaps.
Yeah.
And also she just realized it now because of what Emily said too.
Got her thinking, that's for sure.
I think consciously or subconsciously, that was her first attempt to start breaking them up. And she's just trying to like plant, because that just plants some poison in his ear, if nothing else.
Oh, Sherry is so obnoxious though that I want him to dump her. I forgot
I totally
how
get that.
obnoxious she was.
I mean, I totally get that. It's just, this episode was really, really great. Like from a character perspective, it just had so much to dig into, especially everything, you know, in regards to Lorelai, Christopher. That scene at the car, I thought was that scene at the car between the two of them was, I think, just as fascinating in terms of their relationship as that last scene was. Yeah, it was just great because, and also like, you know, the fact that we all kind of have the same reaction to Sherry, right? Like we're all kind of like, ugh, you know, like we kind of simultaneously want him to dump her, but at the same time, like, well, I mean, at least I feel like, you know, there was a lot of stuff there that Lorelai did that was absolutely unnecessary and was coming from the sort of typical
Jealousy
and me and all of that. Although, you know, on the other hand, she totally, you know, let Rory go with her. Like, she didn't really fight against it. You know, she was, I mean, even like Friday night dinner, she had the best excuse to keep her. And she didn't. She really like said, you know what, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be totally open to the idea that my daughter can have a relationship with this other person. You know, that was really cool. So just the episode in general just went back and forth. It just had these characters just like sort of teeter-tottering between, you know, sort of the best of themselves and the worst of themselves. I'm of the opinion that he was, well, I totally get you on this, Mary, that like, you know, it's a little different given the fact that Rory grew up with Lorelai. I mean, I think he's just literally just trying to make the point, you know, that I don't understand why, like, he's basically saying, I don't understand why you can't trust me here in this situation when you went and did essentially the same thing to me with Max, and sort of expected that like I would be cool with it, which I would have probably been cool with it. But now I'm just asking you to sort of be cool with this, or at least give me the benefit of the doubt.
But the fact that she goes into Lorelai's house and she tells Lorelai, we don't need to get to know each other at all. We don't have to ever do anything. I just want to get to know your kid. That's kind of rude.
Totally, but I don't think that he told her to say that. Do folks here think that he actually like had a conversation with Sherry and was like, hey, you know,
no, but I think that's why it was, I think that's why it upset Lorelai though, is because Sherry flat out said it.
But she is kind of accusing him there in the moment of like, are you sure you didn't say anything to her to like cause her to not want to get to know me? You know, like she's kind of like putting him there on the spot, like you're trying to push me out of your little sphere. You're trying to create your own little bubble here with Rory, and you don't want me to be a part of that. And that, I don't think that is what he's doing.
I would feel that way though. Sorry, Lily, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. I mean, I think as, you know, annoying as I find Christopher a lot of the time, I don't think he'd ever do that because, you know, he's obviously not stupid to tell his girlfriend to be rude to his daughter's mother when he knows that if Christopher and Sherry were purposely like joining up to do something horrible to her mother, Rory wouldn't have anything to do with Christopher. I mean, he just really
I don't think
his daughter, so I don't think that he would be like, yeah, Sherry, go bully my daughter's mom, because then he'd get nowhere with Rory.
Now, I think she's so focused on like the baby track because they mentioned she's ready for kids. She was even ready to be a single mom. I think she's on business trips with him. She's living with him. I think she is just so focused on Rory as that kind of last key element of an important piece of his life that she doesn't have a hold on. And so I think that she was just so focused that she didn't even want Lorelai getting in the way. This is all about Christopher and my relationship and getting close to him.
Yeah, I agree. It's like she needed that tick in the box, like relationship with the stepdaughter, check.
I think I agree with you, John, that Christopher didn't have a conversation with her to say cut Lorelai out, but I think he also did not have the conversation with her of saying Lorelai has to be a part of my life because she's the mother of Rory, and therefore she has to be a part of your life too.
I mean, that's fair, I guess. Yeah, you're right. I could buy that. Yeah.
I wouldn't think that'd be his place to say that though. Like, isn't it kind of just given that you would have to be part of the mother of his kids, right?
But Sherry goes in
Sherry
and says, I don't want to be, but you don't have to be a part of my life, and I don't have to be a part of your life. It's like, yeah, but if you want to know Rory, you have to know me. Like,
I just don't think that Chris should have had to say it. I think that it just should have been known that it
a given.
to be that way.
But I guess what he's saying to her though is it wasn't a given for me. And what you're saying, Mary, is it doesn't need to be a given for you because you didn't raise her.
Well, no, and it's because she doesn't live with you. It's like saying, to be able to get to know Rory, you have to come and pick her up from my house, for example. So you're going to honk and she's going to run out, or are we never going to talk again?
Right. Yeah.
I agree with you, Mary, on that. It did come down to that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's why there's like such the big difference between Lorelai talking to Max about Christopher and Christopher talking to Sherry about Lorelai, because Chris didn't raise Rory. Lorelai raised Rory. And so it would be a whole different story if it was swapped and Lorelai was the estranged parent and she had to talk to Max about Christopher, but because Chris wasn't really a part of either of their lives, and it was after he was like, marry me, and then left because he was upset and throwing a tantrum about it, of course she's not going to be like, yeah, you have to get to know the father of my kid, because she didn't really have a father of my kid, just a Christopher that wasn't around.
Yeah. I buy that.
I mean, it's Lorelai is literally like Rory's other half. That's from the beginning. That's always been there. So Christopher should tell Sherry, should have a conversation with Sherry. It should be obvious to Christopher. He knew Lorelai forever now. I don't know.
I will say though that it did land hard on me when he said, I didn't even know about him until you called me from your bachelorette party. I thought that there was something about that was like, I get it. I totally understand that, like, it's a very different dynamic between, but that's true. I hadn't even thought about that. Like, his daughter was going to get a stepfather, and he didn't even know about it until the bachelorette party.
Well, exactly. And he was going to be living with Rory. So I get that you can't say that Lorelai had to give the same courtesies to Chris as Chris needed to give to Lorelai. But the fact remains is this was a man that was going to be living in the home with his daughter. And I do think that he should have known.
Totally.
I agree, but I also go back and say, like, Lorelai had to provide housing for Rory for 16 years without Christopher's input before that, too.
Yeah, I agree with Mary. And I would think if he's having those weekly phone calls back then, every Wednesday at 7, then wouldn't that come up? If he's involved in his kid's life, then you know what's going on.
Yeah, I was going to say, why would
That's true.
have told him? So he must not have been talking to Rory at that time regularly.
Exactly, and then that's on him.
Right.
Plays a role in it, but he also has to accept some responsibility for that too.
So how insecure did Sherry come across to everybody? Like, she was trying so hard that it was just straight. Like, you just want.
It's like she thinks she's already lost him. Like, she's like just desperately trying to hold on to him.
Oh, yeah. See, I see it the opposite. I see she's so, like, she just got her hooks in him, and she's just like, nope, this is the one last piece I need before we live happily ever after, and I have babies, and we're married, and Rory's, visits us for Christmas. I agree with that.
I'm with you on that, Rachel. I didn't see her as like, desperately clinging on. In fact, the fact that she wanted to go out with Rory that night was totally fine with Christopher and Lorelai hanging out together, showed that she's quite confident in herself,
I just mean she wanted Rory to like her so bad, wanted to get to know her so bad. And
I think it's because it's part of a larger plan that she's putting together, a larger sort of like world.
Then why not come around sooner? I mean, they invited her out for Christmas and she didn't end up going, obviously, but why not come around sooner?
I don't know.
Cathy,
well, they do say that she travels, that the work keeps her traveling. So there may have been scheduling issues.
Yeah, and Lorelai wasn't comfortable. And so I could see Rory just being like, I'll just not do that now. It's just not the time.
I just really quickly want to jump back to Christopher and the whole Max situation. When she called from the bachelorette party, he said, well, I knew about Max. I just didn't know you guys were engaged. So he did hear from Rory that they were together, but he didn't know that they were engaged.
And in Lorelai's defense, sorry, I have food in my mouth. Didn't they sort of get engaged and like were like going to be married like very shortly after?
Very shortly.
I think like 2 months. Yeah. She was going to Toronto and then they were coming back after that.
That's why I wanted to point it out, because it was like
it was a pretty short timeline between it, and he did know about Max.
But 2 months is enough. I mean, if Rory talked to him at least once during those 2 months, that could have come up, should have come up.
Maybe Rory would.
Well, and certainly if they were having weekly calls, it would have come up.
Yeah. Were they having weekly calls? I mean, the way that
It's not clear.
the way it's
Sure,
suggested,
I don't
it
think they
sounds like
were.
he's been pretty good with his weekly calls. So
But that's
why
since-
wouldn't
since
he?
he
More like a
came back
recent
around.
thing.
Oh, okay.
Since like the last visit where Lorelai, like, where she found out about Sherry, that's pretty much how it's been with the weekly call, or the
Yeah.
daily, weekly calls.
When Lorelai called him, though, he must have been with Sherry because he had already moved to Boston. He was in his new apartment. He was getting his act together, and he did that because of Sherry. So he had to have been with her when Lorelai was engaged, and then ended up breaking up the engagement.
He
I agree.
mentioned that they've been together for 8 months, so you'd have to figure out that timeline.
Right, but the reason he moved out there was because he was getting serious with Sherry. So it really shouldn't matter if he knew about Max or not. He was already with Sherry anyway.
I've always kind of wondered what Sherry actually offered to him that made Christopher decide to get his act together and, have things more structured in his life when he couldn't really do that for his daughter and mother. And maybe it was just because Sherry gave him like a chance, before he was ready, but then Lorelai kind of saw, that he wasn't ready. But
I think it's the opposite. I think Sherry demanded it, whereas Lorelai was waiting for him to do it on his own.
Totally. I get the sense.
Yeah,
that
I think
Sherry
she said that. I think he said that she gave him an ultimatum. It was basically like, you better buck up or you're out.
Yeah, she strikes me at. That's why I'm not on the like. She seems insecure, or desperate, or anything. She seems like she wears the pants. Like she really cracks the whip on him.
Yeah, either way, I still don't like her. I totally forgot how this episode went. It was like watching it for the first time again.
But it seemed to me like that's what he needed. Like the idea, like his parents gave him the choices and he made choices, and went out west and had all sorts of failed companies. And then Lorelai was like, you need to do this on your own. I'm waiting for you, but you need to do it on your own. And then Sherry came along and she's like, you either do it or we're done. And it's kind of like what he needed. And he did get his act together. So maybe that's the personality he needed in his life.
Yeah, I mean, in general, he seems kind of a little wishy-washy, just as like a character. I mean, maybe that's why I kind of find him charming, I haven't found anything about him, like he doesn't seem to do anything mean or malicious, or he certainly doesn't, like, he feels like the type of guy that does really need somebody like a Sherry to tell him, what he needs in order to get his life together. And certainly like Lorelai is not going to provide that.
I think he comes across as weak.
Yeah. Is that why a lot of people don't like him?
No, I just don't like him because he's annoying and other things I can't reveal.
Yeah, I don't like him because he's trash. Basura, as I always say when he
Oh
comes.
my goodness, you guys are
I love that.
hard.
Who said that? Who said
That had to be Regina. I can't see, but that's her voice.
That was definitely Regina.
Regina, expand on that without spoilers, please.
I can't.
I have to
There
say
must be some meme with that word that you can post to the Facebook group.
Yeah, but did you feel that way in season 1 about him? Or is this purely based on your overall knowledge of him?
Well, it's based on my overall knowledge. With me, I was already like privy to how he comes out in the later seasons, so that just spoiled me on the character overall, and it didn't do any favors.
Careful.
That's why I was asking you to explain without spoilers. Yeah.
No,
because
I
as of right now, he seems at worst, to me, he seems like a weak character. In fact, that last scene where he's like, and by the way, I love the way that scene was performed as well as written, because the first thing he starts when she says it, he's like, well, good, like as if like he's going to attempt to sort of not, to just sort of brush off how angry it made him feel, and then he can't, and he just like lays it out on her. It was just like so well written, so well performed. But it was like the first time that I was like, wow, the character has a backbone.
I heard that more of as like a passive aggressive sort of thing than I'm gonna brush it off so I don't get angry at you. That's interesting.
Yeah, I heard it as sarcastic. Oh, well, good. Like, I heard sarcastic. But I have to say, like, not knowing anything, I do know, but like not thinking of anything that comes later, I don't like the character because exactly what we talked about right now. He comes across as another kid, and Lorelai's already raised a kid, and I don't think she needs to be in a relationship with another kid. Like he's not the man that I think Lorelai would need.
Well, I think that I'm with you guys on that. I think that I've gotten there with the character, which is I don't think that he's garbage, or what Regina called him.
That's the Spanish word. I'm stressed. Yeah, I've always loved Chris, and every time we have a Chris episode, there's so much Christopher bashing, and it makes me so sad because I love Chris.
But I think I'm there with. He's definitely like he's not for Lorelai, like for sure. But I want I want him to find the person for him as much as I want Lorelai to. I know that it's not really his show, but I don't see that character as like a bad guy. Not yet, but I mean that could change.
Also just from a few things that was said about how Sherry sort of given him an ultimatum to like make him be with her if he really wanted to be with her. And how Lorelai was just like, you need to do it on your own, because Sherry, she doesn't have any kids or anything. It's just it's just her. And I think if Lorelai said if she gave Chris an ultimatum, he would have sort of quote unquote fixed himself for a little while because he wants to be with her, and then reverted back to his kid ways, and then her and Rory would have gotten attached to him, and she has her child to think about, and having Rory get attached to him and have him go back to not being able to be a father, whereas Sherry is giving an ultimatum, just having a relationship, and the way she is she's obviously a very interesting character, but I think Chris could maybe handle that, just having a relationship, but I don't think he could handle being a father, let alone to a teenager who he hardly really knows.
I don't think that Lorelai could have ever kind of given Christopher the kind of ultimatum type thing that a Sherry could. Like I could see a Sherry, I mean, as of right now, I could see a Sherry being in that character's life for the rest of his life. I could see her always, keep, setting the rules and him staying in line. I do not think that Lorelai has that in her, and therefore, kid or no kid, I could imagine Sherry and Christopher having their own kid, and him being a father in that kid's life, its whole life, being there with them, largely because of Sherry. Whereas I don't think that Lorelai could ever have the ability to hold him down like that, because she just doesn't have that Sherry thing.
I don't think she has the luxury of giving him an ultimatum anyway, because if she gives him an ultimatum and things don't work out, it's not only affecting her, it affects Rory. And I don't think that would have been fair to Rory. So maybe that's why she never gave him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking that too, because it's two different. If Lorelai gives an ultimatum, then he's a dad day in and day out, and whereas Sherry it's just them, and I think it's two different lifestyles that he'd be signing up for.
Yeah, but can you not imagine Sherry and him having a kid and him being a father to that? Well, I guess I don't know. There's probably more to come that might actually affect that the answer to that question.
We won't answer your kind of questions like that, John. No, but I want to hear.
But I just think, as of right now, I just feel like I could see him being a father, like him starting a life with Sherry, having a kid with Sherry, and being in that, like being together with Sherry the entire kid's life, like never getting a divorce and staying together. And of course, I could never imagine that in any situation, whether Rory's a teenager or Rory's a 3-year-old or Rory's a newborn baby. Could never imagine that with Christopher and Lorelai, because I don't think Lorelai has what he needs to stay there.
I agree. I think he definitely has the potential to be an amazing father. And honestly, I feel like one of the flaws maybe of Christopher as a father was simply that he didn't have enough self-esteem. You know, maybe he like thought that he wouldn't make a good father, and maybe thought, you know, like Lorelai would be better than him at it. But I definitely think he has the potential for, you know, the future at this point, from what we've seen in the show, to have those admirable qualities about him, that he would be a loyal and caring father to a child.
Well, and he's older now. He made a choice to go far away from Lorelai and Rory when Rory was young. He didn't stick around and try to be in her life directly. So, I mean,
He wanted to be.
but he didn't do it. I mean, if he wanted to be, he probably
He would have
worked
done-
it
She
out.
told him no. He wanted to marry her and be with her and go work for her dad and do all that stuff. And she wanted to go off and be on her own. So she left.
But he didn't have to be married to her to be in Rory's life.
Right.
Also didn't need to
Dad.
be in a relationship with her. Like, they didn't need to be boyfriend, girlfriend, you know, and have a kid in order for him to stay in both Lorelai and Rory's life forever either, you know.
We also weren't there to see how Lorelai treated him, because you see how often she likes to push people away. Right, but my point is that he chose to move across the country and do other things instead of staying in the area where he could try to build a relationship with his kid. And he was younger, and that's part of the reason why he probably did that. Now he's at an age where he obviously feels ready to settle down. So I could see him having a kid with somebody else and raising that kid and all that in a different kind of way than he is with Rory. I'm not saying he couldn't do that, but I just feel like he made choices at a younger age, and whether Lorelai was pushing him away or not, he didn't have to go away. He could have stayed. He could have tried to be involved, and he didn't. So
It's asking a lot, though. I mean, but it is asking a lot, I think. I mean, from what we've seen so far, we know that like Lorelai had Rory and took her to Mia, and then Mia gave her this little house in the back. I mean, we get this sense that like Lorelai really kind of made it about her and her daughter. So I'm trying to put myself into Christopher's position, right? Like, stick around for what? Like it sounds to me like the early days of Lorelai and Rory's life was like Lorelai kind of on her own with Rory, kind of by Lorelai's design. And it seems like that's asking a lot to be like, just stick around. But just stick around because, you know, when Lorelai comes out of hiding with her daughter, you want to be there for that, right? Like he seems like he should be able to like live his life, and if there's something there in California for him to do, it seems a lot more reasonable that he go do that than he just sort of stick around.
Yeah.
But if he was willing to work for his father, Lorelai would marry him. Why couldn't he work for his father and then be there for Rory?
Exactly.
Emily and Richard tried to stay in her life and in Rory's life, and she wouldn't let them. And
Yeah, but
that's just how she was. She wouldn't let anybody stay in her life if she didn't want
He
to.
could go to court and he could petition for visitation. He could have worked for the father and
16?
sent her money. Yeah, he has a right. He has a legal right to see his child. I think he could have done more than just be like, oh, well, she's making it hard, and then just run away.
I
I
also
honestly don't
find
think Lorelai fucked him. No, as much as you guys are talking about how she took Rory away, she took Rory away from her parents because of the way her parents tried to run Lorelai's life. I do not see Lorelai ever stopping Christopher from coming to see his kid. That's just not.
I
in her.
agree.
Agreed.
Cathy Ann, I'm sorry, Cathy Ann.
I want to relate this all to a life experience. My brother's ex took off with his daughter when she was about 3-4 years old. She's going to be 16 this year. We have no idea where she is. courts won't do nothing because we don't have an address. And it could have been the same. They may not have known where she was, right? So my brother's living his life, and if he finds her, like, he doesn't give up. We all look for her all the time. But, like, sometimes you just got to keep moving with your life, right? Like,
I'm willing to
give
accept this
her
idea that he could have,
a
that he
real life
could have.
experience of how that could happen.
I'm willing to accept this idea that he could have, you know, petitioned the courts if he could have found her. I'm not completely convinced. I think I'm with you, Cathy Ann, that, like, at least what I've seen so far seems to suggest that the early part of Lorelai and Rory's life was very much by Lorelai's design. It's you and me, kid. You know, that's how it's felt so far. So that's how I've sort of read it. But even if it wasn't, that's part of what I'm seeing about Christopher, is that even if he wanted to petition the courts, I don't think that he has the spine to do that. I think it's less about I don't want to, and more like he just doesn't know how.
Fair. Lily, were you flashing?
Yeah, I was, you know, because when they were younger, the parents wanted them to get married. Lorelai didn't want to get married, obviously, because she ran away. She didn't want to be around her parents because, well, we hear just from what we've seen about how they talk about, like, Lorelai being pregnant at 16, how they treat Rory because Lorelai was pregnant at 16. And I mean, she didn't want to get married to Chris, so of course, like, she left because of her parents. And Christopher, I think we saw how he left after he sort of lightheartedly was like, marry me, Lorelai, last season. I feel like that's probably what happened. He said, marry me. Lorelai was like, you're not ready to do that. You're not responsible. And he took off and probably threw the same sort of tantrum. So I don't think he would have even tried if he could to find his child, because he was like, okay, I'm going now. I don't really want, you're not wanting to be with me, so I'm not wanting to have responsibility, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like he's all about Lorelai more than his kid even. Because he could have stuck around in season 1 and been in Rory's life, but he still took off again.
Yeah, he threw a tantrum because his ex-girlfriend didn't want him anymore. It's like, you have a child. It's not all about you getting everything you want. You have to give up things. You have a child. You took on that responsibility when you had the kid, you know?
Rachel, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I've seen Lily flashing before.
Rachel, did you have something on?
No, I was done. No, I think they both have a hard time separating their relationship from their parental relationship with Rory. I think they both struggle with that.
Definitely. I agree with that.
So how did you guys all feel about Emily's reaction? I mean,
That's exactly what I was just going to ask.
Obnoxious.
Yeah, that one was a hard one for me to defend. That one was pretty. But
as bad for me as Sherry though. Boy, did
yeah, well, Sherry was.
11.
Yeah, Sherry was pretty horrible.
It was hard to sit through for me. Like, I was sitting in the beanbags and just having nothing to say. It was hard, but anyways, I digress.
I was, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing to defend there. It's like, I mean, I love me some Emily, but that was just Emily at her most childish. I mean, I feel bad for her because I know that she's just really bummed. She really was hoping that maybe in some fantasy realm it could possibly exist, and she was basically being told, like, no, it's not happening. It's never going to happen. And she just
had a tantrum.
Yeah, she had a tantrum. She became a child.
That's where I think that Lorelai is like Emily. Like whether Emily sparked that for her, that realization that she wanted to be with Chris, or if
she knew it all along and Emily kind of gave her permission to feel that way. I feel like that's one of the rare times that we see them like act pretty similarly, or agree. And I just like, I don't think I've ever picked up on that before, but when I was watching it tonight, I was like, wow, they really are very like mother-daughter in this episode.
Rachel, or Lily, one of you guys were flashing, sorry.
Well, I have a lot to say for this episode of mine. One thing that sort of like gets me a bit is how they treat Lorelai for having a kid at 16, and they're like really like down on her for having a kid at 16, but then they love Christopher as if somehow Lorelai was dating Christopher and spontaneously got pregnant from like from nothing, as if he had no part in it, and they love him even though literally they had the kid, you know. And Emily also,
Especially Richard.
well, yeah, Richard, but still, it's just Emily just like absolutely like is just blaming Lorelai for somehow letting Chris, quote unquote, letting Chris date someone. It's like, what was she supposed to do, Emily? Like, he has always acted like a child, and it's not really her responsibility to keep track of when he finally grows up and go, hey, do you want to be in a relationship now? When she doesn't really feel like being in a relationship with someone who hasn't proved to be consistent in her or her child's life. It's like this big double standard thing in their house. It's like annoying.
I think that has to do with the fact that Christopher was willing to go along with the plan of getting married.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna
Lorelai
be
wasn't.
I agree.
And so in their eyes, Christopher would have done the right thing if Lorelai had just let him. And when you say what does Emily want her to do now? Emily feels like if Lorelai had gone with the plan, or if Lorelai had given Christopher the ultimatums before, then everything would be perfect and everybody would be happy and they would have their fairy tale life.
Yeah, they did say that before, didn't they? In season 1, they did bring up that he was willing to do it or something, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it was when they had Strip and Francine over. I wanna say.
Yeah, that's right. It's when Strobe and Francine were there.
Yep.
Strobe.
Yeah. Ugh, that man. Jeez.
Even just the name is ugh.
I've never heard that name, and I don't know who thought of that name.
It's probably a real name for somebody out there. Okay, so then obviously everybody's done with Emily. What about the debate? What do you guys think about Paris and her craziness with the debate?
I feel so bad for Brad.
Oh my God, Brad.
I feel bad for Brad, but that was such a great, like.
I like that her idea of celebrating was watching to see what all they did wrong.
Right, and critiquing their performances. It was pretty on par for Paris.
But then it's so sad that like she's excited that they won, and plus, like I really think she is really starting to consider Rory to be her best friend at this point. And so even though her way of celebrating is weird for us, you know, like she was just really looking forward to celebrating with her friend. And, you know, when she finds out that that's not happening, like you can tell she's just gutted.
Hey, here's something that I'm curious. How many folks here in the room are familiar with the TV writing structure with an A, B, and a C storyline? Yeah. Okay, cool. So, okay, so the A storyline was obviously the storyline with Christopher and Lorelai, and it wove the parents in, and Sherry and all of that stuff, right? Then we had these two other storylines, the debate, and then the storyline with the Lane and her mom and getting the CD to her. So which one was the B and which one was the C?
I think the debate was the B and Lane was the C.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Just wanted to clarify that because I was like a little hazy on that.
Would you think that Lane's was the B because it was of all the different phone calls, or?
No, I think it's just because just those two had just about as much. They had about as much screen time and whatnot. Like there was as much going on in both of them. But I guess that the fact that like the fact that the debate had a little bit of overlapping with the A storyline, because of course Christopher came to the debate and that's how it all started and stuff. Whereas the Lane storyline was just like completely 100% independent of it. I guess that feels like it, but the debate was really small.
Yeah, but it launched the episode in a way.
Yeah.
To the rest of the storylines. That's why I would have thought it was a B.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking, I kind of really wish Rory was like, hey, come with us, and that Rory took Paris out with Sherry. That would have been hilarious. And I think Sherry's brain would have exploded. Honestly. It would have been.
Yeah, but she doesn't get that much time with her dad. And so I think that she probably just wanted that family time.
Yeah, I know, just logistically, no. But I was thinking, like, that would have been, like, a really hilarious thing to do, to go out with Sherry and Paris. It would have been hilarious.
And Sherry works for L'Oreal.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I feel like they mentioned it 2 or 3 times, but I honestly don't remember.
That's how
I thought
It
I
is.
thought
And
Joey
can you imagine the comments that Paris would make about L'Oreal?
Yeah. I mean, all in all, I thought it was a really strong episode. Really strong. That final scene was just terrific.
You notice in the final scene how the whole diner stopped and was watching the end of it there? When he's yelling at him?
And then awkwardly look away.
Right, and I like how they always kind of do that in this show. It's like, sometimes shows, big things are happening, people are yelling, and everybody around them's not even paying attention, but not in Stars Hollow. They're all paying attention when something's happening, even if nobody says anything about it.
But I thought that it was weird that there was nobody else in the diner that we know other than Luke.
That happens every so often, though.
It just seemed convenient though for this scene. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it was like something Miss Patty should have witnessed.
Is it just me, or did anyone else sort of take the, like, I wasn't really paying attention to, like, the, diner goer people, but, like, how Luke was, like looking at, like, the argument, but as soon as, like, Lorelai looked at him, he looked away. Did anyone else take that as, his sort of really bad try at, I don't want to embarrass you by you thinking I was, like, I heard all of that?
Yeah, and I thought they should have had I thought they had a better relationship where at least he could have, like, given her a look being like, it's okay. Like, you'll be okay, instead of looking away.
Yeah.
The characters in this show aren't perfect.
Oh, sorry, my thing's bad connection, so I'll stop.
And also, I think Christopher is pretty uncharted territory for Luke. Like, he hasn't really touched on anything much with Christopher with her. Like, her parents, sure, Rory, sure, but, like, I don't think they've really talked about or really, had many conversation at all about Christopher. So I think he probably didn't really know exactly how that should go.
I was just thinking about the title of the episode. It should have been Lorelai. And for the first time ever, I was just thinking about it in 2 different ways. Obviously Emily says it should have been you. It should have been you, Lorelai. Like, and the end of that question has always meant to me, like, it should have been you that he changed for. But I'm wondering if you could take it another way and ask the question, it should have been you that changed him. Is that something that anyone else thought about?
That's how I thought it.
Part of why my theory is that he got so upset that she told him that is because he always wanted that, and she finally admits it, and it's too late because he's in another relationship.
I mean, I just,
Or like, it should have been Lorelai as in Rory.
I saw it in just the most simplistic way, which was just, it should have been you with him, not her with him. But that makes more sense. It should have been you to get him to a place where he could, you know.
Well, and only because Emily is constantly blaming her, constantly. So of course, if they're not together, it's her fault. So I was just thinking, but I always think of it in the most simplistic term as like, oh, it should have just been you two together. But for the first time ever, I saw that scene differently. Where I was like, well, maybe she's yelling at her for not doing what Sherry apparently did.
I mean, maybe that's part of why I sort of imagine those early days, you know, when she had Rory, right? Or when she was pregnant and had Rory, ran away from home. I guess that it might be tainted by how I feel about Emily and how Emily views that whole thing. Like, if I'm seeing it through the lens of Emily, then I'm seeing a Lorelai who was sort of stubborn and kind of wants to do it my way and do it alone, and I don't need anybody else. It's just you and me, kid, you know? And so for that reason, I maybe I do blame Lorelai a bit more and have an easier time giving Christopher a pass and Emily a pass in those situations.
Can't blame a girl for not wanting to get married at 16, though. So that's a tough one to me. I don't really blame Lorelai that they didn't end up together, because I didn't have a kid at 16, but I can't imagine that I would have wanted to get married and stuff at 16 just because my parents told me to.
Were they telling her? Were they telling her to?
Yeah.
They were telling her you need to get married.
They made
they repeatedly say that like a child needs a mother and a father, and so in that sort of washy world, in a sense, I guess marriage is
myself. It wouldn't work for me. I don't know why.
like marriage is supposed to be like that union, and they're supposed to keep that family, and so I think that's why Emily is always frustrated with Lorelai in the fact that like she never bags Christopher, like whatever the phrase is, like that they're never together there in appropriate terms.
In that first season fight with the in-laws, he said the plan was for the two of you to get married, right? Like they mentioned that, at 16 they were supposed to get married because they got pregnant.
Who mentioned that?
The grandparents. Yeah. Christopher's parents and Lorelai's parents, I believe, they all were in on that. That their idea was that the two of them would get married. He would work for his dad's company, and that was that. That was their plan. And Lorelai went against the plan.
Right.
Which I think, like, with that idea that like a child deserves a mother and a father, and that like marriage is like the solution to this like quote unquote problem, I think that's being drilled into Christopher's head, and like with how we have discussed, he's a bit more impressionable, and that he kind of, I have a question notification.
Lily, can you mute?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I think with Christopher being drilled on that like idea that a child needs a mother and a father, and this is the plan, and this is how it's going to be to fix this quote unquote mess. I think that's, and what we've discussed earlier about Christopher not being like the most mature, and with him kind of needing a Sherry in his life, to kind of drill him on, okay, this is what it's supposed to be like. You need to get it together, or you know what, I'm gone, sort of thing. And so I think like that's where he gets like a lot of the world view on parenting, that because he can't have a relationship with Lorelai, because he can't be married to her in that sense, then like he's gonna have to dip. You know what I mean? Like I've been thinking about that. Yeah. I've
It's
been thinking
crazy the two extremes where either everyone was on board, but Lorelai they're essentially going to like get married, the biggest commitment you can make to somebody else, and then raise a family day in and day out, or no one was in their life because the grandparents, both sets were not in their life. Chris took off, and so it's just crazy to me. It was either like the plan of this very committed plan, or just like nothing.
Yeah. So that's why Lorelai ran away, because it's like, I have nothing, so I may as well have nothing over here with Mia and this little shack behind their house or behind the inn.
Yeah, something also that struck me during the Richard episode in Stars Hollow, we talked a lot about how he's very imposing and he sort of enters their world and like wants to tell Lorelai how to run her business and all of those things. And I always feel a slight bit of sympathy for him, only because he was taught to parent in that way, where you take care of something, you take care of your children, and you tell them how to live. And I feel like there's a part of him that she came home pregnant, and he came up with a plan, and she rejected the plan. And we all know why she rejected the plan. But I think from the parents' point of view, for Emily and Richard's point of view, they're like, we came up with this wonderful solution to her problem, and she rejected us. And I think that they always kind of, hold that against her, even though, we know that that's not a good or acceptable solution for a person who, now has a child and still has to live her life. But I think from their point of view, it's like, well, we gave you a plan, and I think Christopher was, also a child, and was like, sure, okay, like my parents are taking care of it, and then he didn't and then is confronted with Lorelai, who's like, nope, that's not what we're doing, and so they go their separate ways, because he's very listless and she's very, she knows exactly who she is. She knows exactly what she wants. And it's not to get married at 16. It's to take responsibility for the thing that she does, which is have a child. So I always think of all of the parenting, and like how, as a parent, Lorelai decided that this was the right thing for her child, was to leave. But as a parent, as parents, Emily and Richard thought, well, the best thing to do for our child is to come up with a solution for her and provide this outlet, this kind of, we'll take care of it, we'll employ Chris, we'll do all these things. So I don't know, it's interesting to me how you can kind of put yourself in everybody's shoes and see it from their point of view.
It's also just building off of that. If we're gonna say that this is sort of the plan, that was the plan, and that plan was sort of ingrained into Christopher, right? Especially if he's very impressionable, I kind of do what I'm told kind of a guy, right? If that's what you're told, like this is what being a father and having a family should look like, and you come to believe that that's the case, that's what it does look like. That I could see that also affecting why he's having a hard time being in his daughter's life and in Lorelai's life, because he's clearly not able to be that person that he's been sort of that he's been told he should be, right? And even when he does come to town, like he's kind of, like for example, buying the OED, like he's kind of trying to do these things, like I'm trying to provide, but he can't quite do it. He doesn't have the funds, or and so I would imagine that if somebody's sort of feeling like I can't be that person that I've been told is the correct kind of father, that you'd actually like try to avoid it completely, you know, that you would be almost afraid to be there because you don't want to let everyone down. When the truth is, he could be a really great father in a way that doesn't fit his parents or the Gilmores, view of what he should have been, 15 years ago or whatnot. But if that's what's ingrained in his head, if that's sort of what being a parent and father and family man is, then he might just be like, I'm not that. I don't even know where that is. So I don't want to pretend.
I totally agree. And then you could see why Sherry coming in with like a very, like, that there's probably a lot of rules in being Sherry's boyfriend. And so, that's probably why it could never have been Lorelai, because Lorelai never gave him any rules, because that's not how she lives.
Exactly.
So, Sherry, that's why I was asking the question before, like, should it have been Lorelai to set the rules for Chris to grow up? And like, it couldn't have been, because that's just not Lorelai. But
that's what I was saying earlier. Like, no way. In no version of the world can I imagine Lorelai having done that, because it's just not in her nature to do that. But it is in Sherry's nature. It's what we find so annoying about Sherry. But in fact, it's the only thing that works for that guy, it seems.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because I feel like I'm at least somewhat spoiled to know that well, I won't say it, but I can just imagine Sherry and Christopher being together for the rest of their lives. And I can totally imagine them having a kid together, and Rory having a step sibling that always has a mother and father. I mean, that's like also that's not like a rare thing. There are plenty of kids in this world that like have a step sibling with like the father who's with the new wife that like is with that other family for the rest of their life, and that step sibling has the family that they don't. Like, that's kind of a trope. So I imagine that, like, if I'm watching this for the very first time, that's where I'm imagining that relationship going. That's what I'm imagining happening eventually, is Rory having a step sibling.
She's so annoying though. Sure.
All this conversation has me like so excited for like the coming episodes and seasons, because you haven't seen anything, and it's just so interesting to hear what you think is going to happen.
Yeah, your theory.
Well, I have two theories, and then I'm going to have to run because I've got an episode of Shadow and Bone that I want to watch. Anybody watching that show?
Oh, I started watching. It's pretty good.
We started yesterday with the first episode, and we were like, this is not bad. This is not bad. It's got a pretty good rating.
I've watched 2 episodes so far, so yeah.
All right, 2 theories. One, wait, is it 2 theories? Maybe it's just 1 theory. Oh no, it's 1 theory, and then the other thing is more of like a little maybe game that we'll have in season 3. That will start in season 3. The first is theory that I was going to mention the other day. I actually mentioned it in the episode, and then I was going to talk about it in the post show that I have about Yale and Harvard. And I'm just like feeling like, if I am wrong about this, then I just feel like I got to be right about this.
If you are wrong, do you want us to tell you, or to just let you be in your ignorance?
No, you can't tell me one way or the other. But I feel pretty confident. I know what's going to happen.
So this is just a listen portion for us.
It's just a listen portion. This is just a listen portion. So, all right, it just feels so much like this is what's going to happen. And also I will say that this is slightly influenced by the fact that, of course, I'm in later seasons with, and I know that certain actors are still in the show, right? Namely Paris. So here's my guess. My guess is Rory gets into both Harvard and Yale, decides to go to Yale, like in like a dramatic sort of thing, like kind of reversal, decides to go to Yale, like for her grandfather, or like, you know, because she knows that it means so much to her grandfather, because that's just something that, like, we've already been told about this character, that she's, you know, she's always putting other people first, you know, ultimately, and her family, and she cares about her grandparents and whatnot, and that even that her dream of going to Harvard is going to be usurped by her feeling like why? I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm going to go to Yale. That's my guess. Could be wrong, but I also think that Paris is going to not be accepted to Harvard, but is going to be accepted to Yale. That's my theory.
And we all have to bite our tongues right now. So hard.
I mean, I could be wrong, but it just feels right. It feels right. I wish that you were all watching just for that particular thing. I wish you were all fresh so that we could get to it. And if I'm wrong, you can all be like, nah, you're wrong. But you know, I love my theories.
It's not a long wait for you to find out anyway, because they're seniors next season.
Oh gosh. Okay, and then the other thing I was going to say is the A, B, and C storyline thing. I'm just curious now because I never thought about it. Because of course I never watched the show, and I never really thought much about it. I guess I could have figured it out script to script. But Hep Alien. I want us to, whenever there's a Hep Alien episode or any episode, like any episode dealing with the band, count how many of them are A storylines, B storylines, or C storylines.
Ooh, are you going to put a little chart on Remarcus?
Probably not. Maybe, I don't know, but it's just something that just hit me. I was like, God, were we? I mean, we almost definitely were in more. We were almost definitely in mostly B and C storylines, but then I was like, were we ever in an A storyline? But then I was like, oh, well, yes. There's without spoiling people who are on the beanbags, there's a big episode, obviously, with Lane and Zach.
A couple of them.
But it just got me thinking, like, were we in any A's? And then I was like, oh yeah, we were. And then I was like, you know what? We got to count this. We got to count those. Anyway, I'm gonna
got my T chart out.
Something else to let you all know. I'm about a day or so away. Either I'll finish tomorrow or I'll finish it when we get back from our trip, with the scheduling feature on the Remarcus app. Once I'm finished with that, anyone in our group will be able to schedule their own events simultaneously, like on the Remarcus app, as well as I'm going to open up the feature on Clubhouse for any member of the Remarcus Club to schedule a Remarcus event. So like any member of Remarcus could open up a Remarcus room anytime you wanted, and you could use the Remarcus app to let the whole community know what it is, whatnot. All only within Gilmore Girls right now. That's the only space that we have on the app, and I'm going to keep it that way for a bit. So that's going to happen. And what I was thinking is that on our hiatus week, with the exception of the happy hour, which I already put in, I was thinking that other members of the community could schedule events that week. And I would love to go to some of your events. I already reached out to Regina, who sent me the unaired pilot, and asked Regina if she'd be into hosting that as an event rather than me hosting it. So I'm going to sort of put the same, offer out to anyone else that has ideas for things that you want to do that week. It's a hiatus week, but I don't really see it as a hiatus. Like we're going to put down Remarcus. I see it as like, we're going to create anticipation for the drop of season 3.
We're just having a little breathing time so that it's not all rushed together.
No, we're gonna try and recreate that feeling that you get when you're just dying for the new season to drop. If we can, I don't know if we can. You all seen it,
I like
a bunch.
how I'm feeling about this book I'm waiting for. It comes out on Tuesday, and I can't wait.
Yeah.
Are you interested in doing the episode 1 and 2 that we didn't record?
We could certainly do that. Yeah, we could certainly do that.
I just don't want you to get too far into the seasons and then go back to the pilot, because you're gonna be so spoiled for everything.
Yeah. No, I mean, we can do that. We can do whatever. But I think I'm going to only schedule that like the happy hour is the only thing that I'm going to have scheduled that's going to have me as the host in the Remarkist app as well as on Clubhouse, and any other events would be other members wanting to do something fun.
Hey, John, which are your favorite episodes so far again? I was trying to remember.
I think that in the end, we're going to have to, and maybe we can do this like, on hiatuses. We can go back and look at the last 2 seasons, because we're always going to take a hiatus after every 2 seasons. But I feel like I have to go through them. I can say like, just without thinking, the Puffs episode was a real big one for me. The episode with Rory and Dean breaking up, the first half of the breakup, was a really big one for me. Cinnamon's Wake, really, really high up there. But I kind of would like to sort of go through all of them and just like, one by one, we just talk about like just a quick refresher on what it is, and then I'll be able to be like, oh yeah, high up, or it's kind of faded for me.
I was just wondering if you were like going to try and revisit like your on hiatuses 1 or 2 of your favorite episodes.
I don't have any plans for it, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I could certainly like, do a gab session where we talk about all of the episodes we've seen.
There's so much to say.
Yeah. All right, folks, I am back tomorrow at 7, episode 15, closing in on the end of season 2. I hope to see many of you again tomorrow.
Thank you,
John.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, John. Thanks, John.